Hello, everyone. Welcome to 372 pages we'll never get back. Connor, how are you?
Wonderful, Mike. It had a snowy morning this day in Vermont. It's a.
Did you get some fresh powder?
It was a POW day. Yeah, we shredded the gnar, shredded the POW. We had a discussion in the car of whether POW encompasses. I think gnar encompasses POW, but all gnar might not be POW.
Wait a minute. What is gnar?
I meant to look it up when I got home, and
I thought it was short for gnarly. Is it gnarly?
I think so. So in snowboard term, when you go out there and shred the gnar, so maybe it is when the conditions are bad, but I don't think you sort of celebrate when conditions are bad. I think shredding the gnar is sort of an all-encompassing state of mind, whereas POW refers to these specific conditions that it was today, where a foot of snow had fallen on the mountain.
But you did not get pitted at all, I assume?
I did not. I thought about that recently, though, because I did get a new that's a video from like 12 years ago of a surfer doing the ultimate surfer talk. But I got a new base layer for Christmas. And when I put it on without any thing underneath it, I was like, I'm going to pit this thing out. And I was like, it's going to be pitted. So pitted. So that was not
that one
the
is
first
a
time
classic.
I thought about that guy this month. Yeah, they revisited that guy. They went back and found him, and he was like, "Yeah, I laid it on thick for the morning news. What did you wanted me to just give him a boring interview?"
Was he sitting at his desk at the financial advisor's office with his suit on, adjusting his tie very lightly? And what do you think I was going to do? I mean,
we'll have to keep this short. I have the next funeral is coming into my funeral home. Adopt the stately air that I am when I'm not on the beach. So,
well, anyway, explain what the show is, and explain also the bittersweet fact that, I mean, this is. Yeah. I won't say this is not final, but in a sense it is. So
yeah,
explain.
So we read books that we are not expecting to like, and it's bittersweet because this is the last time that we're going to be discussing the William Shatner, Ron Goulart joint novel TekWar. We finished it today after, we spent 2 months reading this thing, I think. And it all came to an end. Not to say that it's all bad. We got to meet some characters we've been looking forward to for a long, long time. And I think we both agreed. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, man.
Check the box. But yeah, it's a if you had told me, I think it would have been, somehow we could have kept the knowledge that there were 8 more books in this series, a secret. And if you would reveal that to me right now after having finished this book, I think it would have possibly made my head explode. Because when you get to the end of this, and the fact that they wrung 8 more novels out of this universe is a stunning fact.
You would have quietly pushed your chair back, stood up, went over to another folding chair, folded it delicately up, and then just hit me over the back of the head with it, all without blinking or saying a word. There is no way that this served as the basis, the rock, the anchor for a series of books.
Yeah, that the nepotism, whatever you call it, the fame of just his name is all that it took to wring 8 more mass market paperbacks out of here. And I don't think that they probably sold well by the time it got to TekKill, but you think about all the people out there that have stories to tell that didn't get made because Ace International was publishing these. It's mind-boggling.
It's stunning. And I think I said last time that reading those chapters that I read, all the mentions of all the people we'll get to in just a moment, how they were part of that fan fiction. I couldn't believe it, but I was delighted by each mention. This one, I was sincere about that. This one upped the ante quite a bit. There was spit all over the computer screen and just, constantly mopping it off going, come on, man. Is this really how this is going to work out here? And I never got my, I still have not received that paperback copy.
Yeah. Wow.
So I was reading the electronic copy, and the length of it, lied because of additions at the end, including a picture of William Shatner in a strange and loving embrace with Coco the talking gorilla.
Yes.
So that was a surprise.
If you had said, does the book end with a picture of Shatner hugging Coco the gorilla? Are there 8 more books, or are both of these things true? That would have You know.
Oh, you should have. That would have been a next level real or fanfic kind of thing. Well, all right. So the plot so far. I know. I don't know. Shatner's Shatner's alter ego, Cardigan, is a space detective. Sam Spade, who is locked up in a freezer prison, suspended animation for a crime he did not commit, framed by the boss of his wife. And so he's searching for, I don't know, a scientist and his daughter. And that's pretty much it. That's all that's happened.
Yep. Sounds like a real tech war.
There's been very little tech. There's been even less war.
The tech figures into it because the scientist and his daughter, their plane supposedly crashed, and he had developed a cure for tech, or a way to negate all the tech, because tech is essentially a virus that would ruin the tech lord's industry. So they wanted him dead. But that's where we've sort of left off, is that Jake, where did we leave off? He was...
I don't even know. He was...
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's a series of dead-end missions where he goes and talks to plump people, and they lead them to another plump person. And then, so I don't even know what the cliffhanger was.
The cliffhanger, well, it wasn't really Cliff, but he had just talked to his ex-wife, Kate, who warned him that people were trying to kill him. She wouldn't tell him how she knew that. She didn't know who was trying to kill him, but this was information he needed, because only like 3 or 4 people had tried to kill him throughout the course of the book. So he might have just thought, like, hey, like, fool me 4 times, like, that's not a pattern. But now that I have been told someone's trying to kill me, I'm going to start keeping a watch out for kamikazes or killer bulls or blackened seagulls that cough and fall to the ground. It's all it was important information for him to get.
I'm sure afterwards he complained to his friends, like, God, I just saw my ex again. Ugh, people are trying to kill you. Shut up, man.
Right, exactly.
I know. So that was the cliffhanger, that people were trying to kill him, though every 4th chapter someone very lamely tries to kill him. Someone with a knife hand or some such. So where are we?
We're starting at the end of the thing, and we've established all the tropes of this book, which are characters that show up for 3 sentences and are named and provide very specific information about their life. We have portmanteaus of terms that don't need to be portmanteaus, but just exist to make them futuristic sounding. We have oddly specific intervals of time, and so these do not peter out at the end of the book. The last 4 chapters, we've got plenty of them, and chapter 31 starts with 2 very dumb ones. A black sky hearse circling a sun-bright slanting hillside cemetery, 6 ebony robots carrying a black coffin, a gaunt old woman sobbing, being supported and comforted by a gleaming silvery priest bot.
Yep, priest bot.
That's the first sentence of the chapter. Maybe, I don't remember, but yeah. So we've got a sky hearse and a priest bot, all something that were meant to be taken seriously. Evidently, priest bots preside over funerals in the future. You have ebony robots that are, I guess, that color because they're mourning. But that's the funeral that Jake is hoping to avoid, I suppose, by avoiding these people that are trying to kill him.
And the reason for the real robots in this situation, rather than just projecting a 3D hologram, have we determined why this is the case?
I mean, we haven't heard whether holograms can bear weight, I suppose.
Well, yeah, but that could be one of those little boxes that just rolls along, and then you've got holograms of the bots, next to it. So
making the coffin the hologram, that's where you really could save on some money and on some effort of the pallbearers.
Yeah, coffins are very expensive in the future. A coffin has to be, outrageous, especially ever since that lawsuit with Lucite is just ongoing.
Right. You could maybe get one on clearance at Al's, but
it's like two. I knew a guy who was an attorney for the 2 fishing empires. I think I can probably only pull one of them. Al Linder. Do you know that name? He a gear maker of fishing, bass fishing, and lures and hats and clothing and whatever. and he was in a lawsuit with another one. And I knew a guy whose father, his entire career basically was just dealing with the lawsuits between the two fishing empires, and he didn't do anything else. They were 100% of the time suing each other for spoon lures and stuff like that.
Like infringement stuff? Like
everything. Just like they loathed each other, and they would just, it was a constant war. And so he was just in the middle going, that's fine. Keep it going, boys.
Let the defense show that the defendant has entered into the record the statement of, yep.
Yes. The wiggly worm, sir, was my grandfather's invention, and how dare you? Anyway, that's how I figure lucite and and plas.
Yes. Yeah. But Jake is hanging out with Beth, and we have another trait of the Gulag Shatner Empire was baffling grammatical construction, and this next statement. Had one that, even this late in the game, I was still angered by. Jake turned away from the misty view. So I'm not leaving things out here. This is how the dialogue starts. Jake turned away from the misty view. No, not exactly, he said, in answer to a question Beth had asked him nearly a minute earlier. I was angry, mostly sad too. So we get 31 chapters in, and then the Shatlart starts pulling some en media res techniques on us, just like dropping us into a conversation we didn't hear the beginning of.
But nearly a minute.
Yes.
She has long forgotten. She's not sitting there on one elbow going, she's long forgotten it.
Right. I guess you've had a conversation with someone where you realized they weren't listening to you. They were looking at their phone, and so you sort of start to have fun with it. Type of thing.
Yeah, I guess I've done that. We're like, oh, so I should go ahead and kill the dog,
right?
That kind of stuff.
Yeah, right. But maybe that's what she was doing. Maybe Beth was up doing a little seductive move or something because she knew Jake wasn't paying any attention. But she's just sitting there for a minute after she asked him a question, and then his response is no, not exactly.
I knew parenthetically. A friend of mine from the old days, he was a distracted person, and TVs in a bar was just you could not speak to him. Okay. This is just not possible. And he would also just sort of lose track of where he was, a little bit like an absent-minded professor kind of a guy, very smart fella. And I was sitting with his wife and he one time at a game or something, like a basketball game, and he turned, I could see that vacant look in his eyes, and he turned and he kissed me. And then his wife went behind his head and looked at me, and we both started laughing so hard. And he suddenly turned, snapped out of his thing, and realized what had happened.
Oh my God!
I mean, it was just sort of a little pack, but he just didn't. He forgot who was on his right and who was on his left.
Wow.
Yeah. So I could see where Jake got a little lost here. And he almost kissed Winger.
Maybe that was, that was what Senator Larry Craig was doing.
That's right. All right. Yeah, I had that as my first sentence too. The nearly a minute later.
So she's sort of asking him about Kate. She's concerned about the attempts on Jake's life, and Jake is sort of determined to go handle all this stuff himself. And Beth wonders if you can confirm it, why not contact your agency for some assistance? And Jake grinned at her, and he's like, what, have them send 2 or 3 husky bodyguards? And it's been a strong showing for Plump, obviously, in this book, but husky comes on a little strong in the final chapters. I thought that was an interesting decision. These guys are husky. There's some guys on a porn calendar later that are also husky.
There's a few body descriptions that are new, and I'm surprised. I'll wait for one of my favorites is coming up. I mean, it's not going to be stunning, but it's I just don't want to mix it in here. He starts putting new ones in, but he's got body issues. We've discussed this in the past. Yes. There's a lot of thinness, slimness, plumpness, where it doesn't really need to be. Yeah, it doesn't need to be the thing that you're setting the stage with, but he always goes to it.
Yeah, and even if you're worried, that this huskiness and all these other things are supplanting the plumpness, do not worry. Plumpness is not going anywhere, including a very surprise addition to the plump canon, one I was not expecting. But we'll get to that. But so Jake is like, I send 2 or 3 husky bodyguards, like waiting around until the Cosmos crew ships me a crew. That would, and then the vid phone buzzed and cut him off. But I assume he was going to say that would take 3 or 4 hours and help me a great deal on this dangerous mission that I'm about to undergo with pure risk.
But he does. This is sort of his. This is his modus operandi. He just walks into places. They talk about how much danger there is, and there's tech lords, and you're imagining. I mean, it's supposed to be a 1-to-1, a drug lord, a guy who would, have your arms cut off with a chainsaw while your children watch.
Right, Pablo Escobar, Tony Montana.
Right, like strip the skin from your wife, and he just walks into places like, well, that never stopped me before, and there's no indication why. What, he once dated, like he went to Chili's with War Bride, I guess, so that's why she doesn't, and so he's pretty confident. Yeah, I think I won her over with that onion loaf or whatever. I don't know why he thinks he's not in any danger.
Right. He's been sort of in the major attempts on his life. There was the kamikaze robot, which he just ran slower than Gomez. So that's why he survived that one. You had the mechanical bulls, which he was holding his own to some degree, but Beth shut them down. So he's like, and he doesn't seem to have the grizzled, like, what do I care if I live? Like, when my wife and son left me, like that was they took all I had to live for. So he's not even like that. He's sort of a normal guy.
Yeah, just sort of the blithely walking in. He's not, Mel Gibson with the death wish, like a gun in his mouth 1 minute and then who cares? Yeah. So right away, again, we're a few chapters from the end. Couldn't be more clear about this. Here's the sentence. Sure, I don't doubt Sands is a partner of Sonny Hokori's. We're still, oh my God, we're still slicing this so like sushi thin now. Like, what? Just find out. Please find out.
And I don't remember how we started thinking about how that was revealed in the first place. But, any normal competent book would have had like a grainy telephoto lens photo of them, like, having lunch outside at a cafe and then like shaking hands, thus proving that they were in cahoots. But like, instead of that, we've just danced around the idea of it for 31 chapters.
And he already went to confront his wife about it and comes back with no information.
Right. Except that she had 2 affairs with him as opposed to 1.
Right.
So he gets a call from the Dalton Walden, fax book shop. A plump woman calls him and says she has information for him. And put a pin in that because I don't think that ever pays off.
Oh, yeah, no, it does not. It 100% does not.
Okay,
yeah.
Just wanted to make sure.
I just want to remind people that the plump woman did say it in a business-like way. So plump people are capable of doing that.
Right. They're not just like, eyes flitting around the room looking for the next like pie they can devour.
I was assuming that Globo was the beta form of all plump people. Right.
It would have been great if he was like looking at the fax screen being like, well, come on, Globo, you just put on a blonde wig. And Globo is sitting there with the pie almost into his mouth being like, woo, you got me, senor.
Senor.
Shirley Temple curls coming off of his out of his boater hat. But then so he and Beth leave to go, I guess presumably they're going to get this information. So maybe this is a 99% not paying off. They leave the house, and even at this stage of the game, we've got some settle down moments for Goulart here. That should be a segment as we go forward. The settle down
moments. Yeah.
Okay. The heavy night fog came swirling, like he just gets a little poetic in this trash of a book. The heavy night fog came swirling over the glass safety walls, spilling down onto the ribbed surface of the ped ramp, tangling with legs and feet. And then this is great. The lights along the top of the chest-high walls made small, fuzzy splotches of blinking light in the thick gray mist. So I had 2 notes. 1 was settle down, and 2, lights are making blinking lights. Well done.
Mm-hmm. In the thick gray mist. Yeah. But this is it is a setup, and maybe that's the thing he's burying. He's doing like the Encyclopedia Brown thing with a distraction, so you don't solve the mystery. He's giving you a bit of a, because in the middle of that, the chest high walls, right? Because this is important coming up. So we'll see in a moment with this quite surprising action scene.
Yes. But before that, we've got a gross little a back and forth between the two, especially when you consider like what the two men who purportedly wrote this book looked like and what stage of their life they were at. Mm-hmm. But Beth has her arm linked with Jake's. She says, "I think we're passing," she informed him. Jake's response, "Hum, H-U-M." That's like
I noted that too. You say the word hum?
Yes. It's a Batman Biff Pow type of thing. But she continues, I was just saying that I believe we're being accepted by all these milling pedestrians as just another tourist couple. Jake says, "Father and daughter on vacation?" Laughing, Beth said, "More like newlyweds on their honeymoon."
Once again, is it Goulart flattering Shatner or Shatner flattering Shatner?
Right, yeah.
Which is it?
If you use the theory that the reader mentioned in the last thing of Goulart putting in these sort of blinking coded messages to his readers, I guess the father and daughter would be one of those. But I think that both of them were, obviously so horny for Beth Kittredge that's they'd be down with either scenario.
But then the follow up to it, this is puzzling. Then he grins, so he's obviously pleased, and says, "Sorry, I wasn't paying attention a minute ago." So do you mean 10 seconds ago when I said this strange thing?
Oh, man.
I believe we're being accepted by all these milling pedestrians as just another tourist couple. I would not be paying attention to that sentence myself. Right. Or if I did, I would throw her off the chest-high railing myself for saying that. So she said that twice then.
Huh.
Yeah, because he says hum after that.
But I thought you were going in the tactic of I wasn't paying attention a minute ago, which by this book's standards we're led to believe is exactly a minute ago. So like maybe it was just in like, she had said something about the weather that he had, realized a minute ago he had not paid attention to.
Well, he was losing track. He shifts in and out of it. And then I noted that at the beginning when he said the nearly a minute earlier, and then she asked to come along in this early, right before this little scene we're seeing. And after a few seconds, he said, "Sure, come along." So then he gets more, I thought, okay, he's back. A few seconds, just shy of a minute. But then he gives us this vague thing, like a minute later. So his temporal thing is just, he's always, you think he's on track with his regular Shatlartian thing, and then it goes off the rails again. Like, exactly what is the span of time? This seems to be important to you at 1 second, and then not another. What are you saying by this?
You're right. It is. It's so baffling. A guy on Twitter, Blam Rob, wrote in and just said it reminded him of a Futurama gag. He said, the professor says, "It's a single atom of jumbonium, an element so rare the nucleus alone is worth more than $50,000. Bender says, "How much more?" And he says, $100,000. Just like, don't, for God's sakes, be exact. But so then the hum puzzled me. This next one puzzled me even more. Maybe you can fill me in on this usage. Jake says, "I was thinking about
wait. Before you even say it, I want to. Okay. Can we do the card trick of, because I'm going to circle. And I know it's the exact thing I'm doing. So just trust us, audience members, and continue.
Okay. I was thinking about Kate, wondering why I never tumbled to what was going on.
Yes, indeed. The trick is, the magic trick is complete. That is the word that I had in my card. Yes.
So he's wondering, they're talking about the affair with Bennett Sands, and Jake is wondering why he never tumbled to what was going on. In the history of mankind?
I have never heard this. I admit I speak one language. Maybe is it a Canadian thing? I looked it up. I did not find any reference to it.
Okay. Yeah, I was doing it right now. Canadian? I mean,
I don't know. I don't know. If we're in the dark here about this, and I will say my mistake, but I have never heard this word used in this context, and I doubt you have either. But
there's no like, it's not one letter off for something, so it could be a typo. If it was like, I never figured out what was going on, it'd be like, oh well, just no one caught that. But wow, yeah, all right, good.
Yeah, and not a inventing a colorful word where that it's not not a spoonerism, not a
not a
Leo
fake
DeRocher kind
futurism.
of misspeak that's funny or something. No, it makes no sense.
All right, it's always good to confirm those, because sometimes either one or the other, usually I end up looking like an idiot, but people will probably write in to tell us that we're idiots and that this is a well-known reference to a Tyrone Power movie from the 30s, but
it's James Joyce, like it opens,
Yes. All right, but still.
But this gets to my next beef, and I'm sure you have this circled as well. You were talking about the portmanteaus. This one really irritated me after all this time.
Okay, I'm circling it.
Circle it. Ready?
Yep.
The Great Karnak says that about 100 yards ahead of them, a tall, slim boy of about 14, very Shatlartian, was standing near a rest bench and looking anxiously their way. Rest bench.
I didn't have to circle it because it was already in my notes, online notes. It was underscored as a spelling error because rest bench is not a real word.
But the word bench. What we all know what benches are along trails. You would sit and rest on the bench. I don't. It's like when we get a ladder, will it be called a climb ladder, and then a pound hammer, and what are you talking about? Or I gave him a slice of eat cheese, or what?
It's near a bench that is a combined mechanical bull game that you have to see how long you can ride it for. So it's a very active bench. Those are very prominent in the Acapulco district of Mexico. So that's why
maybe there was a 20 whatever year period where they just made a big blunder in city planning, and they were putting workbenches along the trails and routes, and they just weren't getting used. And so finally they abandoned that and started, let's go back to benches where people can actually rest instead of build cabinets on.
People didn't know what they were for. So I'm reminded of, we used to drive, when we would go to drive record riff tracks, as we would pass by I think Mexican restaurant that just had a banner outside of it in huge letters that just said the word salad ?
Yeah.
So I think they needed to put up big banners on the top of these rest benches that just said rest, and people would be like, that's a good suggestion. Thank you. Questioning vinyl siding.
Oh man. Yeah. Rest bench.
But yeah, so the boy of about 14, this was one of the most frustrating parts of the entire book, because every single person reading this knew what was about to happen, especially after I mistakenly called his wife being one of these last time. But
yeah, I mean, every person he could have met since the second chapter, I think, where they met the scientist or whatever.
Right. Yeah. The plump scientist. I don't remember her name. Dr. But yeah, so he sees this boy. He had hair just a few shades darker than Jake's, a grin that was a younger and much less cynical version of Jake's. Beth saw that Jake was staring at the boy. What's wrong? It's got to be him. It's Dan. Jake waved, laughing, hand high in the foggy air. Yeah, so it's just a stunning. There's no reason for the boy to be here. Like his wife didn't mention that the boy was going to be here. He has been told that there is in effect a hit out on his life. And yet he sees this boy unexpectedly and is just like all of a sudden a goofy, laughing idiot at the sight of his son.
Yeah, and he was explicitly told that his son wasn't there. So him sitting on a rest bench makes no sense. He wasn't looking for him. He wasn't pulled out of school to go meet him at a pre-appointed place. So yes.
Right. He's conveniently sitting where he has been, some might say, lured to. So, but Jake resents Beth for saying, like, be careful, like, settle down. But Beth, the android Beth, obviously, runs out ahead of him. Beth kept running. It was she who met the boy. He tried to avoid her, his face growing dark with anger. And so I was amused that the kamikaze robots show anger when their mission is being interfered with. Like they're that driven in their mission that they are upset when it is being not allowed to complete it.
Yeah, that programming, it took 7 more years and
Yes.
and hundreds of millions of dollars to develop the useless anger that showed on their faces, because that actually makes it less effective. And
yes, exactly.
But hey, got to have some verisimilitude there. So
it's like those old, when they would paint the angry shark faces like on the noses of World War II planes. It was just that just intimidates your enemy right before you blow them up.
Yeah. So they stagger and they hit the nearest glass wall. And this is what struck me, the chest-high wall. The wall cracked and a whole jagged section broke free under their combined weight. Now, this is just, did OSHA do anything to check these things out? Like, this is their sole purpose, right?
Right, yes.
So the weight of a small and very hot Andy and a slim boy
of about 14
causes the chest-high plasglass wall to shatter into jagged pieces and break free. I mean, this is incompetence on a level that I cannot believe from Acapulco. This is awful.
Well, yeah, I guess that's that's sort of you said OSHA, but they're not going down to there. They're just part of the greater greater states, greater Los Angeles area. Mexico is underregulated, I suppose.
Hey, you know what? Here's an idea. Let's melt down a few of those rest benches and use those to shore up our plasglass chest-high walls, okay?
But so you mentioned the chest high, and I was thinking about that because I didn't remember exactly what went down here. But that's sort of like it's almost like a Family Guy light lamp shaded joke where like you expect them to topple over the chest high walls like a space mutiny kill. But then they're running towards it. Then they just burst through it into jagged pieces, and there's no reason for it to even be chest high. It could just be a normal wall. They just Kool-Aid man through it.
That's what I'm saying. The whole thing confused me. I went back and forth going, I thought they went over why didn't they just go over the wall?
So this is a good moment. An old man screamed and brought both gnarled hands up to mask his weathered face.
And I thought about this guy thinking to himself, I think I'm passing as a newlywed. I'm like, oh no, they saw both my gnarled hands.
Yes. He's like, oh, if you had only seen my, surprisingly smooth and muscular chest if I had taken off my shirt. Like, I didn't use lotion or sunblock on my face and my hands. That's why.
Otherwise, he was, what is it, Willie from The Simpsons? Is that the name?
Right, yes, exactly.
He's totally ripped.
So I liked that detail. But then, so Jake sort of like rushes over here and he stares down at the jagged hole that they've left. And his reaction to Beth having ran and done this, why, Beth, he muttered. So he still hasn't pieced it together at this point in time. He watched Beth presumably run up to who he assumes is his 14-year-old son, tackle him over the edge of this thing, his son's face contorting with anger, and then he still is, what happened? Why would she have done this? This is so wildly out of hot character for her.
Well, he gets the answer very soon.
Yeah.
The explosion comes while both of them were still dropping.
Yes.
And then just a gigantic explosion and twisted pieces of metal and plastic. What is plastic?
That's a good question.
Shards of glass. So this was a very odd. This was her built of metal and plastic and glass.
Maybe they landed on two guys that were walking a giant pane of glass across the busy street that they fell down on top of.
Right. The fruit stand next to them gave them a little salute of thanks. I appreciate that.
Plas plums were dealing them. But yeah, this was another settle down moment for me. The description of the continuing description of the aftermath, a great harsh flowering of intense red and yellow flame that ripped through the fog, snarls of harsh black smoke spilling across the gray night. The two of them went flying and spinning, scattered forever. Settle down.
I agree.
And so Jake, to his credit, observes this, cacophonous explosion, glass flying everywhere, them spinning, scattered forever, and he finally starts to piece it together. He wasn't Dan. He was a kamikaze android sent to kill me, Jake said to himself. And Beth sensed that. Every single person reading this sensed that.
My note there was that the gnarled man, the old guy, was like, "Are you talking to me? What?"
Right. He lowers his gnarled hands and a confused expression crosses his careworn face.
He reveals that he's actually Treebeard from another. Yeah, that is. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. I've never seen a thing where your character, he describes once, he's always like a curling lip of cynicism, but he's 100% trusting in a place where he should be the most cynical. Like, are you kidding? Stay away from that kid. Take a drag of his cigarette and like hold Beth by the shoulder and like he's gonna blow up and I'll push him over the edge, and he's suddenly like the most trusting person in the world. Right.
Let's just say that I told you, I was like, listen, I've received very credible information that someone is trying to kill you in this strange foreign city that you don't really belong in. Like, and you walk outside, like the first thing you'd see like a dog walking down the street, and you would just like have your guard up. You would see like, if there was a guy that was like spare change, you would, try to snap his neck because you would be convinced that was the thing. The idea of having your guard down, not to the point where you're able to put this up, is beyond the realm of human comprehension.
Yeah, and then the fact that he's the last person, just as a device, having your own character do it, and then be incredibly dumb afterwards too. That's the other thing. It's not. It just like lasts all the way through. It's basically a duh moment. The entire chapter is duh.
Right. As Beth is running, as they're falling through the chest high wall, he is just sitting there slack jawed. Wow. All right. Well, our hard-boiled detective. He's still got some tricks up his sleeve, though. Things where I wonder if he's being an unreliable narrator. Things where you're wondering how he's going to make things work. So let's just move on to chapter 32.
Chapter 32. Here we go.
It starts with I had a dumb sentence contender to start it off, which was
magic trick again. Go ahead and say it. I got it.
After a while, Jake wandered down to the ground level of Acapulco.
Oh shoot, mine's 2 sentences later.
Oh damn it! That struck me as just idiotic. Ground levels usually you associate with a parking lot, but just I guess now we've got them in major tourist destinations. We knew that, of course, because there's ped ramps everywhere, but it just every now and then it strikes you how idiotic it is.
Yeah, so she blows up his dearest love, who he knows is an Andy, and he hates Andys, and he knows that he has no future with her, but he loves her, and he kisses her.
And he knew her for 96 hours, but he loves her.
Yes. So because of her death, an android, that presumably once he meets Kitteridge, he could just have him rebuild one.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Or could, possibly romance the actual Beth. But,
yes.
These are both possibilities. Instead, he goes hunting for tech. So he's going to immediately put the heroin needle in his arm, the rubber tube around his arm, tap at his vein and go into the world of drugs because an android died and killed a kamikaze son of his. I mean, it's just like an odd reaction, I just think.
It's like something out of a broad comedy where, like, because we learned last time that the first time he ever did tech was the night that Kate and Dan left him. So it's like an emotional trauma happens and he just like, tech, I need the tech. Like, where's the tech? Like, there's no time to process it. Like, he just, he starts seeking it out in these seedy corners of New Acapulco.
Yeah. So presumably any emotional thing in his life, he is going to go for that. Like if someone gives him a nice, somebody gives him a motorcycle or something, like, tech, I can't handle it. Some mild emotion.
Right. He gets the call from the Labradoodle breeder that, like, he finally got his application processed and the dog is ready for him to come. And they say, oh, we're so sorry. It's going to be actually 2 more weeks. And so tech, where is it? And like, I need to
brain box.
I need to have tech so that I have that dog in real life. Yes. Which brings me to the next thing. He says once he got hold of a brain box and hooked himself up to it, he could relive the past few hours. On the second go round, though, Beth wouldn't die. So, so my main question. So he's just going to relive the past few hours. There's nothing's going to be different. He's not going to be banging Beth. He's not going to be doing anything in a different scenario. He's not going to be fearing for his life. But I was like, is Beth going to be real in this scenario? Is he going to make that little tweak? Is she still going to be an android? Like, what the hell is wrong with this guy?
I don't know. No, I guess he's just going to take an android for a walk on a ped ramp. That's what he's going to do drugs for. Next comes one of my least favorite things in this world is the set pieces that you can't tell if they're supposed to be funny, but they take up way more time than other things that he wastes so little time on, as we'll see coming up with major characters, that it makes you reread them and go, wait, what was this? And this is, he goes up to a one-legged beggar perched on a crate that had once, and if you were afraid there weren't going to be Bennett Sands references even in the middle of this beggar set piece, oh, you will be very excited to know there is. A crate that had a legend on its side, welfare food courtesy Sands Industries. And then he enters into a puzzling little, dialogue with this one-legged beggar. How much do you still need? Only $1,300 American. Jake gave him a $10 note. Am I supposed to laugh then? Or I don't...
No.
How long have you been collecting for it? It will be, senor... And there's one of their
Yes.
one of those famous things. 7 years this next Christmas. Gracias for your small contribution, Donata. And then it goes on. And I won't go through the rest of it, but he still has discussions with him, and there's nothing. Did you get what is happening here? Do you understand what's happening?
I had absolutely no idea what to make of that exchange. There was no indication that the guy was putting the money towards something untoward, like you would assume he might be. There was no indication of how far along, that if 7 years was supposed to be like a funny amount of time that he had been out there collecting for this leg. I mean, presumably a prosthetic robot leg is expensive, and so $1,300 wouldn't be that much. So maybe he was really close. Maybe he's going to be like hitting that goal, in 2 months if people keep coughing up $10 bills every time they see him. Baffling.
Was this maybe the bookend to the tourist bus ride earlier, where the people said no, they get free legs or whatever? Is this just a reference to that? Remember the woman chided the man who was taking social commentary photos for saying, like, no, they actually get free legs, which is also a weird detail.
Huh.
So I don't know.
Well, that would mean that this guy's a grifter then.
Yeah. Anyway, he burned a full page on it, which in this book is stunning that he could take that many words to do nothing.
Pages to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's coming up on another good interaction as he seeks out the tech. He goes to a pimp, I guess, a guy outside of a guy outside of a brothel, and he's asking him. He's like, I'm jonesing, man. I got to score tech, and the guy's like, I only have real fantasies inside, none of that stuff. Like, so this guy's looking down on him. And then, do you want to take us into the money sentence?
Certainly, yeah. So the pimp informs him, senor, said the robot pimp disdainfully. Oh, one of my favorite sentences. I mean, it really does up the game with said the sweating fat man.
Oh, yeah.
Said the robot pimp disdainfully.
Yeah, so I went through and found some quotes that I thought would be improved by that.
Oh, good. I'm glad you did. I did, full disclosure, I did give Connor a heads up on this.
So the first one, this is from Huck Finn. We had the sky up there, all speckled with stars, and we used to lie on our backs and look up at them and discuss about whether they was made or only just happened, said the robot pimp disdainfully.
My immediate thought was tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day until the last syllable of recorded time, said the robot pimp disdainfully.
What is that from?
That's Macbeth.
This one was something by J.D. Salinger. She wasn't doing a thing that I could see, except standing there, leaning on the balcony railing, holding the universe together. Said the robot pimp disdainfully.
Oh, I could spend a long time thinking of things like that, but it's beautiful. It comes in second, I think, behind the scene, the sort of snap brim hat Casablanca sad scene of meeting his wife and turned and paid the sombreroed robot or whatever, taxi driver, robot taxi driver.
Oh, yeah, at the park.
Oh, there's just a lot of his tin ear for, I think he thinks he's being futuristic, and it just sounds as dumb as hell.
I've got one more. This is a hard one to get through, even after years after I've read it, decades after I've owned a dog, but sure. From Where the Red Fern Grows. After the last shovel of dirt was patted in place, I sat down and let my mind drift back through the years. I thought of the old KC baking powder can and the first time I saw my pups in the box at the depot. I thought of the $50, the nickels and dimes, and the fishermen and blackberry patches. I looked at his grave and, with tears in my eyes, I voiced these words. You were worth it, old friend, and 1,000 times over. Said the robot pimp disdainfully.
Oh, man. That's never-ending fun.
Yeah. But so the robot pimp, his disdain does have a profound effect on Jake. It sort of snaps him out of this state that he's in. If it's obvious to a robot pimp, he said to himself, it ought to be obvious to me. Yeah, I don't think, after all, I want to escape from reality just yet. There are a few things to take care of first. I just want to read that middle sentence again. This is something he said to himself. Yeah, I don't think, after all, I want to escape from reality just yet. It's a sentence with one comma that for rarely, could have used the 5 that he usually puts into his sentences, and it could have used maybe a half of the words that are in that sentence.
Well, the odd thing was that the old man with the gnarled hands just happened to be walking at the same pace that he did. So again, was like, what did you say now? What are you doing? Who are you?
Then he offered him a gnarled Werther's.
I'm 27 years old. I have a condition. These are medicated Werther's, by the way.
But so we slam into the next section.
Oh, do we slam into it?
with a hell of a transition. It gives us the patented Shatlartian space in lines that you would always think was an error, but then it starts with the next sentence. You can do us the honors.
Kate, as always, slept naked.
So this is the second section in the book that starts with him walking into a room where a woman is just sleeping there naked.
Yeah, and then again, I would put this as maybe a settle down. She sat up in the wide oval bed and stared at him, making no effort to pull up the sheet. Not even a little, really?
Yeah, right. She's not chilly.
It's 68 degrees. I put the thermostat down for the night.
Yeah, no effort is aggressive.
Yeah.
But so, no time to dwell on that because we've joked about it a lot. We've danced around it. But here, finally, in chapter 32 of TekWar, we finally get Bennett Sands. Mm-hmm. And he is introduced with the barrel of the gun, Jake reached out to nudge the still sleeping Bennett Sands in the ribs. So it's sort of fitting that even as we finally meet him, he is still asleep. But then Jake, this is lowbrow and juvenile, but I couldn't help it. Jake prodded him again, this time in the region of his kidneys. Stiffening. Sands rolled over on his back and opened his eyes. So we meet the Sands for the first time, and we're led to believe he has a case of morning wood.
Well, the other thing is he jabbed him in the ribs, right?
Yeah, that's a sort of a patented move.
It's a patented move, but he was beating the crap out of a robot or a cyborg. I'm sorry, cyborg.
But if you think that this is that Sand's entrance is done, au contraire, we have some very impressive things left coming. He's been building this for a long time, and so he's going to milk this entrance for all he's worth, make himself look as good as possible.
I was going to actually queue up, O Fortuna, because we're meeting. This is Bennett Sands, for the love of God, like the Ninth Symphony, bum bum bum. all right, here we go.
Right.
So,
Ric Flair's entrance music.
Yeah, so here it is. Tell us about Bennett Sands.
Sands' face was pale and puffy, his eyes underscored with shadowy patches of skin. Pushing with his elbows, thrashing some, he grunted himself into a sitting position. So, oh boy, was it worth it. We've got characters using grunted as a verb to make their grand entrance.
We talked about this last time. This seemed to me a competition again. If part of it is physical and therefore, as a podcast, it doesn't work. But still, I'd like to hear your version of that, of pushing up with your elbows, thrashing some, then grunting yourself into a sitting position. Give me your best. Give me your best, and I'll give you mine.
Okay. Oh, wow. Not even making an effort to pull up the sheets there, Kate. Nice.
All right, I'll give you mine. Pretty puffy. Oh, God. Face is so pale. Shadowy patches of skin. There we go.
Oh, so yeah, it's you were always just sort of led to believe that Sands was a rich guy. So I guess this is sort of meant to be a slam on Beth, is that she's shacking up with this guy just for his money, because clearly it's not for his complexion or his lack of grunting. That was my take on it, at least.
Well, he suffers a further indignity. He's wearing a candy-striped nightshirt that is wrinkled and twisted on his lean body. So he's this lean, pale, puffy, shadowy patches of skin, grunting with effort to get on his elbow, wearing a candy-striped nightshirt.
Yeah, he's sort of dressed up like the dad in the Night Before Christmas or something. Like, even though his lady friend is sleeping naked to him, he's like next to him.
She's been sitting there for hours going, "Will you take off the candy striped nightshirt? I'm not even making an effort."
Yeah. So this next part was extremely confusing to me. We have not skimped on any details. Obviously, we said that the scene started with Kate, as always, slept naked. So there's been no transition between the robot pimp and this. But Jake, Bennett Sands says, like, how did you get in here? Jake says, I'm pretty handy at circumventing security setups. And just to be on the safe side, I brought along a highly efficient tech housebreaker and 3 ordinary burglars. It helped that I was also able to bribe most of your servants. Like, did any of that happen? Is he like, what is the purpose of this if he's lying?
I don't know. I think, again, it's his weird sense of humor. He didn't do this. Unless, he didn't, right? Because he's sitting there alone. Like, there was no time to... If he had been doing that, that would have been 7 chapters of him flying from one burglar's house to another and having an interview with the plump fella while he sweated, So there's no way that this happened.
We would have learned that, like, the efficient tech housebreaker was named Rudiger, and he came from, a town in Wyoming, and that his mom suffered from diverticulitis or something.
Right. Yeah. So this is just a weird lie, and obviously 100% unnecessary, because it doesn't. What does it advance anything? And it's not even followed by Jake half grinned or shrugged one shoulder and laughed made a slight laughing sound out of his mouth.
Yeah. He winks at the very much still naked Kate.
Yeah.
Because so he's not like, I thought it may be like, oh sure, like if he's got these guys, I've got to come along with you. But he doesn't do that. He pretty much pulls the Ray Kinsella move on Terrence Mann, where he just puts his finger underneath his jacket and acts like it's a gun and forces him out the door.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but that never comes into play again, because actually he does. He just, makes him get up and get dressed and come with him. Or does he get dressed? I don't know. Now that I'm thinking of it, I don't know.
I was trying to remember if he wore his candy striped pajamas into the Pleasure Dome. And, I wondered that after I finished, and I didn't bother to go back and read.
Oh, wait, I have it right here, as luck would have it. So they're going off to the Pleasure Dome where Sonny Hokori presumably has Kitteridge, right, and Beth.
Yes, yeah, that's what they've been led to believe.
So all this is about is him taking Bennett Sands at gunpoint to the Pleasure Dome. So that's it.
Yes.
And it says, Sand's red and white nightshirt fluttered when he gave a thin nasal laugh.
Yeah, so that's like wow. Yeah, I guess he's that slim, I guess. He's sort of like a gaunt guy where, the slightest breeze is disturbing his clothing.
But does he have consumption or something? Because his pale patches of skin. Usually like a trim billionaire who your wife is having an affair with, you can sort of picture that in a, it's like a Lifetime movie thing. It's just some cheesy, B-level actor handsome as hell and, ripped.
Jack's dad from Lost, they wake up at 4 a.m. to do their treadmill and, they're.
Yeah, but this is some weird. I think he was so, used to describing people with gnarled hands and everything. He can't help adding that detail. Like, look, he's just a trim dude. He does not have a nightshirt on. He's got some fancy pajama pants on, but he leaves his shirt off because when he gets out of bed, his six pack is going to be rippling. So,
look, he never said that the elderly man with the gnarled hands hiding his weathered face was not Bennett Sands there to see if the observe the kamikaze mission to take out Jake was successful on the ground. He did hide his face.
Oh, wait a minute.
There's my theory that I'll write a 20,000 word essay on.
Oh, get to Reddit, my boy. Let's pause this.
But yeah, they go out the door and they go to the Pleasure Dome and they sort of have to talk their way in because they say the robot says they can't come on in, the robot security guy. And so I was amused just Jake says, you and Sonny's other henchmen come and go all the time carrying weapons, so give this guard the password. And so I was like, so they're actually using passwords? Because Bennett Sands, you'd think he would just walk up to a facial recognition thing, a retinal scan, but they just actually use a audible password to get into the room. And I looked up, retinal scanning does exist because Ogden Swires did say, you confirmed my rep patterns with that unsanitary retina scanner you Sergeant lugs around in his knapsack. So it does exist, but they're going to rely on the password that you could just overhear someone and then some jackass could walk in and be like, I know the password too.
Hey, nice job on Ogden, by the way.
I took a brief pause, thought about it.
Don't think that was lost on our listeners.
It's the last one, I hope. Actually, it's not.
I don't know.
There's a letter about them. So, but yeah, so the password is Niju Neji. Probably a joke, but it only shows up in TekWar searches.
Yeah, I looked it up too. The one word means what? It didn't. I lost it, but the one word meant like metal or something like that.
In what?
Japanese. I think just neji was the only one.
Phonetically. Okay.
So niju didn't. I don't think meant anything. The other
Japanese
one
for tech kill.
Meant yes. But before he says the word, though, did you? I realized after hearing this sentence, I don't like this lean-bodied Sands guy.
Okay.
It says, after running his tongue over his lips, Sand nodded up at the robot. So I'm like, Neji. You creep.
Yeah, revolting.
And they don't say anything like, nice nightshirt, sir.
Right.
Billionaire.
Yeah, that would be the first thing. He shows up with a guy who's like, he has to be reminded to use the password. He's showing up with a weirdo who's got a gun underneath a jacket, and now he's licking his lips a lot. But everything seems on the up and up here. Go on in.
Go ahead and pass, gentlemen.
Yeah. So they walk in, and the Pleasure Dome is full of characters and sights to be seen. And we only got to be able to focus on the highlights, and there were two highlights for me. One was the on the airfloat dais that hovered 5 feet above the mosaic, neon trimmed floor. A quartet of bewigged chrome robots was playing greatly amplified Bach.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just, major points for the use of bewigged, which I assume would be challenged in any reasonable game of Scrabble.
Yes.
But I guess, that's just the kind of vibe Sonny Hokori likes. And it makes sense. I feel like that's accurate based on what I built him up in my mind.
But then, look, he's got a lot to think about. This is a dangerous situation. He doesn't know what he's walking into. He's kidnapped a billionaire. There's security everywhere. And I'm going to spare the sentence, but there are people with snacks. And here's what Jake is focused on. He says, some of your bio foods. Well, and then he's like, no, what? No, my cousin gets it from some guy.
No,
It's just such a weird.
other food exists.
Why are you focusing on this?
Right. Maybe focus on like, should I like be standing within 5 feet of you, you decrepit old husk of a man?
Oh, it's so weird. What a question. Like where, you're walking into the situations like you're kidnapping someone and you're in Vegas or whatever, and you've got a gun to his back, and then you see someone go by with snacks and you go, is that a Stewart sandwich? I know they're a big provider for like lunchrooms and stuff like that. Is that where you got that? Isn't that a bit of a non sequitur?
Right. Oh yeah, wow! Like being at a baseball game or a soccer game where they've just had like a stampede and 110 people have been crushed as you've tried to exit the facility in an orderly manner, and being like, I wonder if those hot dogs were Cisco.
Oh, but this is where his descriptions get so. He's not good at this when he's walking into a big crowd. You know how he does those weird things, like when he's walking along a ped ramp. And so you just like, all right, I'll fill in whatever that means. But then when he tries to focus in, it just makes it so ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And so in this one, he's going up what is it? An up ramp.
Yeah.
And then just the things that he pulls out is like the packed rows of seats in the racing vid room where customers were watching and betting on horse races from all over the globe. So when he zeroes in, he's like, okay, so like, a horse racing place,
sure.
A gambling room with pieces of plastic around. That's what he's making us imagine. And then a lovely Chinese girl in a plas leather dress suddenly jumped up from her red plush chair. And that's when we get into, I'm sure you have notes on this particular moment.
I know what you're talking about, but it was I didn't write it down just because it was a
yes,
fan.
This was fanfic where it's there's a cockfight and the bloody bedraggled bird had just landed in her trim lap.
In her trim lap, yes.
Yeah, so she's one of the good ones, I think we're supposed to believe.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Jake lingers a little too long on the side of her trim lap.
Yeah. And then I also want to nominate a new category, Weird Sentence of the Week, where I can't quite explain. Here it is. Look it up in the guidebook. Arlen, said a thin, blonde young woman who was pushing her way through the milling dome customers at the side of a tuxed black man. What is happening in this sentence?
I didn't even really notice that, how awkward that was, just because I was so overjoyed to see another named character. But yeah, the tuxed black man. Yeah,
and his name is. So his Arlen, and her name is where is? I'm sorry, I have to find I only had that sentence there.
He's Arlen. She is Charmaine.
Charmaine. So
who's very interested in seeing a death wrestling match.
So the thin, blonde young woman with a tuxed black man. Again, a word I have not heard. I mean, I guess
betuxed,
be-wigged and betuxed. Yeah. And so he wants to see, but she's annoyed at the tuxed black man because he doesn't look it up in the guidebook to see the death wrestling. So it's just, again, I guess it's supposed to be funny. That's all.
Yes.
It's supposed to be futuristic. It's supposed to be a smile. You know what the future's going to be like with tuxed black men and Charmaine trying to find death wrestling. Come on. I've nailed the future.
Guidebooks, more than anything.
More, yes.
But yeah, they're no Leroy. They're no Okie Ogden and Ma. They're no Rudy and Marcella from Big and Pimp, but they're a strong addition. And frankly, I thought about this when I was taking notes because it's coming up a lot. It happens at least twice, but he's frequently referred to Chinese characters and Japanese characters as the Japanese, like singular. So I'm surprised that it wasn't just like at the side of a tuxed black.
Yes. And he does say a lovely Chinese girl.
Okay.
So again, girl is probably not it's not sitting too well in the future either, but whatever.
But yeah, so they make their way up these walk ramps or automated ramps, which are presumably escalators, past the sites that you would traditionally see in any given casino, aside from the big-wigged robots and bloody roosters. They get to a locked door and talk themselves in. And after making a faint whistling sound for 5 seconds, the door slid open.
I propose that as another contest.
I'll give you a little taste of what that would sound like.
All right.
So again, it goes on for longer than 1 second, and you start to freak out and wonder what the hell is going on.
Yeah. So they're both going, oh, well, it's out of order, clearly. Yeah.
Let's walk around. I mean, this is not good. I think it might not be not even not working. It might be actively dangerous to be standing outside of this door making this whistling noise. Let's there's got to be another way in. Yeah. It can't be good for your hearing. It's probably rattling your dentures, which I presume you have, you creepy old man.
Remember years back when those people in Cuba were getting weird brain damage from crickets in the compound? Right. Yeah, it's going to be something like that. Yeah. Here's a proof that Sands is not the sharpest knife in the drawer. So he's been abducted out of his bed.
You mean besides him being really unattractive? Like
yeah. The saggy parts of his eyes, the dark patches of skin. So he's tromping through this Vegas, pleasure dome, and he says, out of nowhere, he says, Cardigan, I think you're actually doing all this just to get back at me for sleeping with your wife. Like that certainly is a large part of it. I mean, right, yeah, exactly. I have not been circumspect about this at all. I don't think I was. Wait, you're starting to suspect that? I abducted you by gunpoint from the bed of my wife.
Right.
I just didn't understand what heavy lifting was that sentence trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, again, not attractive, so therefore not intelligent. Maybe he is just piecing it together, being like, "You're that Jake? Wow, this is starting to add up." Huh.
I wonder, now that I think of it, I wonder if a revision to Sands was made because his original turn at him was a sweating fat man. And the editor's like, look, every plump and sweating person is not automatically evil. Make him thin and lean and, well, all right, but I'm giving him baggy eye patches then. Yeah. Fine, whatever you need to do.
You're just revolted at the thought of me drooping all over your wife. That's the real thing. If I had been trim and lean, you wouldn't have any objection to this. But now I piece it together. I see where this is coming from.
Oh, and I know that you're going to call out, I hope they're two of your favorite characters, Jake and Brew.
Yeah, I do. Did they make it? I went straight to the big appearance. But they do have some lines there, but if they have appearances before Sonny shows up.
Yes. Yeah, they do. It's just a quick thing, but he insults his goons who are named wait, I just lost it. Oh, Brew. Jake. Sorry, not Jake and Brew. Brew and
Leon.
Leon, that's it. Who do not like to be called goons at all. And so there's a moment that's supposed to be comic again with the two of them, but yeah, they're pretty fantastic, but unfortunately short-lived in this book.
Yes, very much so. As is the guy we're about to meet.
Yeah, so here we go. He has been talked about more than, gosh, I can't think of anyone who is there. What movie where a character is never seen, is only mentioned? I mean, I know
the neighbor on Home Improvement.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is incredible. The build up to this guy has been, well, literally 34 chapters. So
it's like Emperor Snoke in the last Star Wars. You just like had this glimpse, and then it shows
movie after movie.
Boy, does it suck when they finally arrive. But yeah, so I'm just going to read the full appearance of Sonny Hokori. This is on page 281 out of 307. I've been talking about him the whole book, and he finally shows up. A third man appeared in the doorway. He was plump. About 35 and Japanese. His suit was a silky black and had dozens of small golden birds in flight across its jacket. I've been wanting to meet Cardigan for a heck of a long time, he said, smiling cordially. Hiya, Jake. Come on in. So in your mind's eye, did you think that Sonny Hokori was plump the entire book?
No. Yeah. I figured he might be a smiling Japanese, as he is described in the next sentence, but
that came as a big surprise.
yeah, I did
I
not.
mean, I don't know why it came as a surprise because the 2 out of 3 characters are plump, but I just, it's like when you see someone that you've only emailed with or something, and you're like, oh wow, like I thought you'd be taller.
Yeah, what was the dozens of small golden birds in flight across its jacket? Does that warrant?
Yeah.
It's almost to the level of a settle down because, again, these details, they're so sporadic and they're so misleading in a way, like so misdirected. Am I supposed to be paying attention to? Are you a magician doing something over here? You know what I mean? Because most of his prose is so flat and dumb.
Right.
And then when he goes into these spinning little flights of fancy with, steam swirling around and teasing the nighttime trees, you're like, what do you? Wait, why? Why now? Why here?
I guess it's just supposed to be, futuristically ostentatious for this, character that we're going to spend 2 pages with.
Yeah, I guess it was, either petting a cat or having dozens of small golden birds in flight across his jacket.
But yeah, so then Jake says, like, don't keep your goons' hands off me. And Sonny goes, chuckling, Sonny Hokori nudged the cyborg. Hear what Jake called you, Leon? Apparently that nearly 2 years at Harvard didn't help you much. Cardigan's fucking opinion of me doesn't. Hey, you and Brew go wait in the rumpus room, Leon, suggested the smiling Japanese. Oh, a Hall of Fame Shatlart sentence.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I agreed with you. I wanted more of Leon, the Harvard dropout cyborg, and to be a fly on the wall of the rumpus room when he and Brew go back there. Because, I don't think they're going to have good things to say about their boss.
No. Oh, I assume the first hour of their meeting together in the rumpus room, which again is just like thick shag carpeting and a lowered
Bumper
floor
pool
and the
table.
bumper pool table and a Cheryl Ladd poster on the wall, and Leon
like
just trying to
J and B.
Yeah, just trying to get out of Brew. Like, what did you do? Like, how much did you drink to get the name Brew? Like, what?
Right. Brew is hoping that this is when he finally gets the story of what happened in that second year of Harvard to make him drop out. But Leon never wants to talk about it.
Yeah. Anyway, unfortunately, no more of Leon and Brew. We get right to more Sonny Hokori.
Yeah. So Hokori chuckles goons and shakes his head, and they walk into the office. And I sort of I glossed over to sort of the end of the chapter. Did you have anything that he specifically did?
Well, I just noted that all of his tics are sort of becoming concentrated now, where we're getting more of the, all the Goulart stuff is coming out, and this is a 2 sentences here. There's a swear at the beginning. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Asshole, I thought you told me you were smarter than Cardigan. I've still no reason, Sonny, to believe I'm not. So
yep, there you
it's
go.
just like a speech pattern. He's finally met the guy. This is Sonny Hikari, man. This is the time for action. And he's doing parenthetical. I've still no reason, Sonny, to believe I'm not.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like supposed to be deference or, these guys have been presumably doing millions of dollars in tech deals over the past couple of years and framing guys. So they're all hardened criminals. He's sort of doing the, like a Hugh Grant character, like, well, I have still no reason, Sonny, to.
One doesn't like to, insult Sonny. Yeah, so that's all I got for that.
Yeah, well, the chapter ends with again the concentrated ticks. Just then, 5 of the wall screens started flashing red. A loud hooting filled the big office. Then most of the far wall of Hokori's office began to glow an intense sizzling orange. In less than 10 seconds, the whole stretch of wall turned to gray, gritty dust and fell away into the fog outside.
Mm-hmm. This is pretty Kleinian, is it not? Is this the soldiers, the people dropping into his room where he's playing the game? And
oh, it is. Yeah, pulling him out of his boot suit and dragging
the boot suit. Yeah,
yeah, it is. It's that rappelling down into it. Cliche. If you thought you formed an opinion of Sonny Hokori just because he's wearing a shirt with dozen of metallic birds in his plump, you got to think again, buddy, because chapter 33 starts with, while half of his office wall was still in the process of disintegrating, Sonny Hokori had nimbly somersaulted out of his chair and gone scurrying behind the bank of computer terminals. So he's plump yet nimble. He contains multitudes.
Well, I'd like to challenge you, speaking of a physical characteristic. Without looking, can you describe Kurt Wintergild?
Bald, rose tattoo on the side of his face. And I think I didn't take anything down, but I was surprised. I think he was described as like muscular.
You were very close. I'll read it. Foremost in the charging wedge was Kurt Wintergild, the bald-headed field director of the IDCA. There was a look of intense satisfaction on his deeply tanned face, and the single rosebud tattooed on his polished scalp glowed especially red.
Right.
I actually did not go back and look at who this guy is. I don't remember I think it was just a stopover. Well, one of the 4,000 stopovers on his way down to Mexico, where
talk about Sonny Hokori.
To talk about him in an office with I'm sure there was a fan that was, only half working, and he was.
It was
sweating.
The one where he went to the abandoned Tomorrowland at Disneyland, and then Kurt Wintergild had projectioned in there.
Right.
To talk to him rather than just projecting anywhere. So that was this guy.
Oh, right. Yeah. The cab driver kidnapped him to take him to a place to project
to watch a projection.
Yeah.
That was almost as good as the scheme where they lured him to the place he was already going.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so you've got the IDCA agents. And Sonny Wintergild is again described as the plump Japanese. That was delightful.
The plump Japanese who was able to pop briefly to his feet. So again, the nimbleness, the plump and nimbleness. I guess it's
he's like Odd Job or something.
Yeah, or who's like a comedian who's I don't know. There's lots of people who are nimble, I guess.
Oh, sure, yeah. Chris Farley could do cartwheels. Farley
could do, yeah. John Belushi was pretty, light on his feet.
Right. But then Sonny Hikari picks up a nail gun and just starts holding the trigger down on it. So he shoots like 30 nails at a lean blonde man who howled as he was carried back across the gritty floor by the force of the metal darts stitching into his body. Had the wall been intact, he'd have slammed into it. Since it was no longer there, however, he kept going. So it's a physics lesson 101 for you that, if you hit a wall, you will slam into it. But if it's not there anymore, you'll keep going.
I like when my authors mention things that aren't there and what would have happened had the thing been there. I can't read a book until I can. I have a hard time with a movie about racing or something. Like, what if they didn't have cars? All right, let me describe that. If they didn't have cars, but they do have cars, so let's go ahead with the movie now.
Right. Had the Maltese Falcon been in the office, Humphrey Bogart would not have had to retrieve it. However, since it was not there, he had to go and get it.
Oh, yeah. So there's a new. I just like that the weird dart gun that doesn't really get a good description. Just is unveiled at this moment. Like all we have are las guns and plas pistols and this and that, and then suddenly 30 silver darts came spurting out of the weapon. An ebony needle gun.
I think that in the very first racist cab driver, he described a guy as having been pinned to the back of his seat by one of those. So they must just be like a Tech Lord exclusive.
I see. Okay. I stand corrected.
And speaking of Tech Lords, we're about to lose a good one because no sooner has he appeared. Before Hokori could duck back down, Wintergild had swung his las rifle and fired. The beam, quickly and efficiently, sliced the Tech Lord's head clean off of his body. Unbelievable.
I won't say I laughed for a full minute. I did briefly consider my wife was away working on something else, like calling her in, explaining the whole thing and going, and then. But then quickly dismissed that.
Yes. Oh, it paid off better than I think anyone could have dreamed in terms of this inconsequential idiot being talked about for the entire book. Showing up. I've got some figures, but then being dispatched with as quickly as he was. It's so funny.
Yeah. I mean, the Scatman Crothers, being axed in the chest is less of a surprise than
That's
this.
Exactly. He traveled across the whole country to make that happen and then just walks inside, says, "Hey, anybody here?"
Yep.
So I've got a little quiz for you.
Okay, good.
Do you think that this is more or less, do you think people said Sonny Hokori more times, or did he say more words? So did he say more words, or did people say his name more times in this book?
Oh my gosh. Say more words.
Yeah.
I'd say
because
people.
I'll give you this. He was there. He was in the story for 2.5 pages. So full disclosure, we took a little break there, and I will just give Mike the benefit of the doubt that he didn't, when he claimed he was going to get a beverage, run to the book and quickly flew and count the number of words Sonny Hokori said during his time in TekWar. But the question on the table was, did people talk about Sonny Hokori more than the number of words he said in the book?
I'm going to say, I know he says a few sentences, but man, there are so many Sonny Hikoris. I have to say that people mentioned his name more than words that he said.
The fact that it's even a question is all the answer we need. Unfortunately, you pack a lot of words in.
Yeah,
in
he
did. 2.5 pages.
He did have a few quirks.
So Sonny Hokori was present for 694 words of this story, 2.5 pages, 19 sentences, and he uttered 158 words.
Okay.
Hokori was said 57 times in the book.
But Sonny?
Sonny 40. Sonny Hokori total 27.
Oh, so okay, so your total was the total of all mentions of either Sonny Hokori, or Hokori.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, it's all there. So it's still less, but it is close, and it wasn't an easy question.
Well, I mean, let's say this for sure. If you mention the Crash and Bennett Sands and Kitteridge and Beth, then it's outpaced it by quite a. But that, that's stacking the deck, sure, but still.
Yeah, that if you cut all of that out, you would have a it would be a novella. It'd be like when you
trim novella. Yes.
So Hokori's decapitated. We can, take a exactly 9-second long moment of silence for him. You can do that on your own time, everybody. And we can move on because we've still got some delightful fates for our other characters you just mentioned. So Jake dropped into a low crouch and then went diving through the freshly opened doorway, his preferred method of going through a doorway, diving. Sands started to follow, but a las rifle beam found him and cut off his left arm just above the elbow.
Go ahead. I know what you're going to say. Sorry.
His keening screams of pain were cut off when the door shut behind Jake. Keening, like I'm really keen on someone. Another word that I didn't know what it meant.
I don't think that it does mean anything. I'm sure if you combed usage through vast databases, you could find someone in 1625 who talked about his keening something, but no human that you know or I know has ever used the word keen in this sense.
Not even Jim Tice. I guess that's why I never tumbled to what it meant.
Right. What's the other one? Not my toque, the one that you know what I'm talking about?
The one that Swires was saying?
Yeah,
he says he did say toque. Oh no, that's what Gomez said. I don't remember exactly. That was a while ago.
Yeah. Anyway, words that have never been, and then they're just, since there's so few of them.
It's so rare, yeah.
He's not Anthony Burgess here inventing new languages for his book. It's just a few scattered here and there. So all they do is just stand out in relief against all the other terrible hack prose.
Yeah.
It's a very odd thing to do. But what I was going to say was, he gets his arm cut off. That is not a big deal in this world at all. In fact,
right.
it's elective surgery often. So, frankly, you're doing me a favor, Yeah,
exactly. We live in a world where a beggar in Acapulco has a timeline for when he expects to get his robotic arm. So the billionaire, however well his health is or not, can probably buy his way to the head of the list, just like Mickey Mantle did with his replacement liver.
Yeah, if he goes out in the lobby, there's just is there a knife hand guy here? I'm a knife hand guy. Yeah, hey, can you just slap one on here? Certainly.
They'll do it like the people who will give your shoulders a massage at the poker table.
Right. So, yeah, just hilarious. So Hokori and Sands have met their fates literally seconds after we meet them. I mean, this is just unbelievable.
If you had a 5-year-old telling you the story, that would be sort of the way it would go. Is you would talk about them forever, and then a dinosaur would eat them 2 pages after you met them.
Right. And then he starts to get pretty shoddy with the descriptions because there's a bunch of IDC agents and they're, sort of facing off with, so Jake comes in and they're like, oh, no, don't shoot him, the bald guy says. And then there's 2 agents, and here's a sentence. They both had their las guns trained on him. I refuse to say las guns, though. And the one who was as bald as his boss was saying, stand back away from the professor, mister. So he has 4 things: plump, lean, well, trim. I mean, assuming we can lump all the body descriptors, and bald. Husky, bald. They're either pudgy, they're slim, or they're bald. And that's about all. Or they're sweating. So he's got 4 main categories of people, but 2 of the bald guys are in the same room.
And I thought it was amazing that the guy like blew his line. He said, "Stand back away from the stand back from the professor, or back away from the professor." I said both of them combined. Can we maybe take that again? So I'm so embarrassed.
Sorry, this is a book. We actually don't do second takes.
Yes, we don't have a director yelling, "Keep rolling." So, so Winter Guild, like, they're asking him, like, what's going on? Like, the professor, is he in league with Sands? Sands reassures him that he is. Winter Guild reassures him that Sand is alive. As he does that, he rubs at the rosebud on his skull with his bloody fingers. For the people, no matter what their body type in this book, people just love rubbing stuff, other parts of their body with their fingers, metal fingers or not.
Brushing things with their hair, or brushing their hair, or rubbing things with their fingers.
So I think the professor is unconscious. So that's another great detail. We walk in and the professor has just been like a piece of plas fell and knocked him unconscious on the bed. So
we don't even learn his body type. Was he sweating? How much hair does he have? We don't know. We have no idea.
And so that's, as undignified as these other characters' departures were, this is probably the least of them all, because he's essentially just like Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's by the time we get to him.
Yeah. He's what's that character in Anaconda who gets stung in the throat by the wasp and spends the whole night
lies there unconscious the whole movie.
But this is maybe being a little nitpicky, but because it could be a speech pattern of one of the bald guys in the room. He says, "Did they kill her?" And he says, or Jake suddenly felt cold. "Did they kill her?" "Not at all, my boy. They didn't kill her at all." So they didn't even a little bit kill her? No, not at all.
Hey, if we're going to nitpick, the time to nitpick is after they've whizzed the Sonny Hokori appearance down their leg after the 287 pages of buildup. I do not think it's nitpicking at all.
All right. Well, that's it.
Yeah, he leaves by punching Winter Guild in the face, which is briefly important for plot reasons. But he says, "That's the one I promised you back at Spaceland Park." And I looked that up because I was like, I don't remember what he said. And
I didn't remember that either.
He didn't say, like, "I'm going to punch you." He just said, "Keep in mind, if I ever meet up with something other than a projection of you, watch out."
Yeah, so that's right. Yeah.
Didn't really promise. He never really promised anything. He sort of made a vague threat that was unsubstantiated and then delivered a, punch that left the guy sort of like rubbing his face, but didn't really do any damage. But that's how that one ends. Chapter 34.
Yeah, chapter 34. I got nothing else for 33.
So the chapter 34 starts with him like back in his room, and he says, like, about the only thing, he's depressed about everything, how everything went down. About the only thing he was able to get any satisfaction out of was the fact that he still hadn't given in to the urge to use tech again. "Stuff's still damn tough for me to keep away from," he said aloud, slumping down into an armchair. And so this was at this point, I was like, you've used tech to make yourself not use tech. You've used tech to make yourself not have your wife having left. Like, for the love of God, can you please use tech to just make yourself not talk out loud to yourself?
Yeah. Speaking of, I have the whole monologue, if you'll allow
okay.
Because it's one page and he says a whole bunch of stuff to himself. I mean, it's a short paragraph of stuff, but stuff's still damn tough for me to keep away from. But there's still Beth. She's dead. No, that was only an android simulacrum, a mechanism, not a person. She's gone to her uncle's villa. Sure, the place on the moon that she told me about. There you go.
Wow.
Monologue for young actors. He's by himself saying all these things.
Wow. I have to utter the word, I'm not even going to say it, an android simulacrum out loud.
Yeah. I mean,
possibly the most unnatural thing a human has ever done.
Yeah, because that's what they are, but inherently they are a simulacrum.
Yeah, or another way to describe an android simulacrum, android.
Yeah, exactly. Rest bench. Yeah, this is from the author of Rest Bench, so just keep that in mind.
Well, we've got another eloquent thing coming up. This is not him saying it out loud. This is him feeling it. He says, he felt that Beth, someone he'd become very fond of, was lost to him. So I sort of circled that one with a note to like save for next anniversary to write that in my You are someone I have become very fond of and hope you are never lost to me.
Yes. He's the old joke about I told you I loved you when I married you. If anything changes, I'll let you know. It's as romantic as that. Yeah.
Right. He has deduced, that she's going to her uncle's villa on the moon, which I guess was a Chekhov's uncle's villa on the moon situation. The fact that she mentioned that so prominently, and they had that wildly unnatural conversation about the password he used to secure it being
undramatic.
No, it was eclectic.
No, but that's what I mean. He called the password eclectic. Didn't have enough drama.
Right. Oh yeah. He dissed the hell out of the password. It did not meet his password requirements.
But now, the delightful return that was promised to us.
Yeah, this one was sort of spoiled through a fanfic, but not spoiled because it sometimes is nice knowing these things, because when you know Winger's coming back, you're like, how on earth are they going to make this work? And the answer is, they just sort of like push him into the frame. They're like, get on, it's your time, you're on. Winger's like, I don't know my lines. What am I doing here? I have not prepared for this. Like, what? I'm on. Hey, Jake. I was certain we'd be seeing each other again, said the chrome-plated Winger as he entered. If you have a moment, I'd like to talk to you about a rather serious parole violation. And like I was certain we'd be seeing each other again was great too, because it's like, because we are together on the cover of the book, so it would have been pretty damn weird if I was just in that first scene with you. So
yeah, I was shocked to learn that Winger was chrome-plated. This description of him in this brief period that he's in there here for a complete red herring. I mean, it's not even a red herring because it doesn't. We're at the end of the book, so seeing him again doesn't do anything. And they try to raise this thing that like, you punched this guy, you're going back to the freezer. Spoiler alert, he doesn't go back to the freezer. Nothing happens with this. But he says chrome and gleaming so much in this, like way more than he did at the beginning.
Wow.
I started to think he's going mad. I counted like 7 in
Holy
3
crap.
paragraphs.
Page and a half?
Yes, about his fingers gleaming and this and his chrome and he's metal, the metal man. It was unbelievable. I thought he'd finally do you go slowly mad while you write a book? Because he has gone mad.
I mean, granted, it has been like 280 pages since we last saw him, so the attention span of this average TekWar reader might not be that long, but I think you could give him that much credit.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so Winger's back, which is a joy, I guess. Who would be your nomination for the next character to get a return and a curtain call here towards the end?
Leroy?
Well, mine would be Ma. Or Globo, of course. I'll take any Globo.
Right? Yeah, he's still alive. I mean, there's not saying that he's not coming back in the next 8 books in the series, but we're dancing around Gomez.
Yes, the bouncy-haired Gomez is back.
Yeah, so they remind you of Winger's chromeness about 18 times in this page, but they haven't mentioned his hair the past 3 times we've seen him.
Yeah, this is I don't understand this, and now he's concentrated. He got he saw a squirrel, and that was Gomez's limp. Now becomes the thing, Everything that Gomez does is described with a slight limp. But when Gomez returns, he says, but there's where you're wrong, amigo. Smiling, Gomez suddenly reached up to touch the mechanical man's silvery neck. And he uses the little drop buzzer that, what's her name used?
Beth Hikari, or Beth Kitteridge's knack. Yeah.
And Andy Beth used. And drops a robot. So this thing works on, presumably works on cyborgs, Andys, and humans, I guess.
Right. Yeah, it's versatile.
Yeah. So he drops him down, and they both leave together. The old buddies are back together again.
I don't know, like the hair, it could have been the sort of thing that, like, when you have like a awkward relationship with a coworker, and then there's like, something happens, like you're driving to the meeting together, and you see like a really fat dog. So then you're just like, the fat dog is your inside joke for like the next 3 weeks. When you pass him in the hall, you're like, well, I want to see a fat dog today. And then it gets old really quick.
Yeah.
So then you just like completely let it die. And there's nothing else to talk about. That's what his hair was like, I guess. He overdid it so quickly early on that it just got to be like, we need to let this go. This is the bouncy hair is way too, we really overdid it.
Have you ever done the game? I mean, I did this to a friend. It rarely works, but we had a long cross-country trip, and you pretend to look around, and then you just see something, and you go, God, I feel like I've been here before. Isn't there a Men's Warehouse around here? And the person would go, yeah, it's right over there. And then you just meet them out over the 12 hours, and you just keep doing it. And it's like, yeah, no, it's right there. Like, there it is. And there's no reason other than to just be a dick. But
Right.
when they finally goes like, oh, all right, it's not even worth a laugh or anything. But then, of course, you never do it again.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
This is what the bouncy hair was.
But yeah, so he comes in. He has quite an exchange. I don't know what to make of this character, because he does the amigo, and then he also starts talking like Ogden Swires.
This
like
was bizarre to me. I felt the same thing. Like, he messed up two characters. he did the Tommy Wiseau, and he just had a different actor playing Gomez.
That's a great point. Yeah, he says the Cosmos Agency specializes in gathering little tidbits of information from hither and yon, and from yon came the news that Putz Wintergild had complained to the parole folks because you tipped him over onto his toque. I mean, amigo.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be some sort of weird reveal or something, because he says it erased all his chrome-plated memories back 10 full minutes before my auspicious advent. Which doesn't make any sense, but is trying to be like Bertie Wooster or something? Gomez? I didn't get this at all. He didn't talk like that before, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think it was that notable. Maybe we were distracted by the hair and don't remember. I mean, he was sort of a bon vivant type of guy, I guess. Like, he was always talking about like his ex-wives and stuff, but I don't think it was this bad. Maybe just because we noticed the other guy talking like that. But I mean, he says Bascom's pulling the usual strings to derail, circumvent, and otherwise circumlocute the complaint. So it's the same, he lays it on thick.
Yeah, and I'll continue on a little later. I decided, therefore, to pop down here to the country of my illustrious ancestors to roadblock Winger before he could do you any harm. What?
Illustrious. Roadblock. Sure.
I mean, all we're supposed to be picturing here is, like one of Clint Eastwood's partners in one of his Dirty Harry movies.
Yeah.
Who gets shot and, look, buddy, I'm going to find these guys and I'm going to give them all the payback. Thanks, pal.
Yeah, mustache, like, the curly hair, and just like, shorter than him, not as good looking, but classic sidekick.
And, hair bouncing everywhere, like every Clint Eastwood sidekick.
But so he comes in there spouting his new words, his new vocabulary, and he's dealing out Deus Ex Machinas, like, they're dropping the complaint against you. I'm knocking out this robot, and I know a buddy of mine who has a private spaceport that we can take a rocket to the moon on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was amused by this. If we want to make a quick jaunt up to the moon without anyone being the wiser, Montoya's the gent who can arrange it all. And that reminded me of one of my favorite quotes from Karate Kid 3. Terry Silver says, "If you're looking to be bad in L.A., Snake's the boy to be bad with." And I just wanted to arrange that. I wanted to wedge that in because I sent you two different tweets that I had tweeted last week. One was about unbirthing vor, a weird fetish. And the other one was about Karate Kid 3. And the unbirthing vor got like, dozens of retweets and likes, hundreds of likes. The Karate Kid 3, like one guy I think liked out of pity. So I was like, well, we see where this movie stands in the pantheon of reference material.
Oh, well, it's a damn shame. The world is poorer for it. I'm sorry for the world. Do you remember what Karate's bad boy says in response to "If you're looking to be bad"?
Of course I do.
Okay, do it.
He goes, "You know it."
And keep in mind, he's in the junior karate league, so he can't be over 18.
Yeah,
let alone 21.
Right.
And so if you're looking to be bad in L.A., you go to this 17-year-old kid named Karate's bad boy.
He's one of Bart Simpson's bully friends, Dolph, Jimbo, or Kearney or something. They're going to go and like throw rocks at a hornet's nest. That's what he meant by being bad. Right. I found myself talking about that on it was like one of the first conversations I had in the new year. Our driver was driving us home, and for some reason he brought up a line from Mr. Miyagi in Karate Kid 2. So I was like, well, this has presented itself an opportunity. 2019 is full of opportunities to talk about Karate Kid 3. He had not seen it.
The ejection seat that he had installed came swiftly into play.
I believe he humored me when he said he would seek it out. But so there we go. So the things really move quick these last couple of pages. We've got a vid porn calendar with two husky sky sailors about to jump in bed with Miss April.
This annoyed the hell out of me. After everything we've seen. After everything, this is the first use of the word vid porn. And also, in contradistinction to what exactly? I mean, we've had robot pimps and, we've had guys soliciting openly. We've seen those big sky things writing the ads for, dens of iniquity everywhere. And this is the first time for vid porn.
Right, it's true.
It's just so stupid and lazy.
Yeah, but I guess this is sort of, I was picturing the rest of the shop, which was like the greasy dot matrix printer they use here, and with the computer with like the green monochrome display of the your standard sort of mechanic shop with the dirty calendar behind the.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously what he's going for, but I mean this, a screensaver circa 1992 could have done the same. It's like, oh, I like your vid porn there.
Like, well, yeah, you want to see the fantasies I cook up when I'm hooked up to tech? I've got a current calendar. I don't have to turn it myself. It's mundane as hell.
Now, in your tech fantasies, do you do tech? Hell no.
What? Yeah. I mean, I'm using tech, right? What other escape is there? So there's another sort of Goulardian self-awareness that the listener hinted at in the last episode, where they says there's two possible passengers to the moon who could be her, one of whom had listed her name as Bev Kingsmill. And then one of them says, "Oi, she's not the sort who keeps her initials when she adopts an alias, is she?" So I thought that could be the sort of Goulardian, like, yeah, folks, this is what I got to work with here.
Yeah, that could be, yeah. And maybe that's why you put in the oi there, because that's also an annoying jab in the eye. That's like someone flinging vinegar in your face. Oi? Who's saying oi?
But yeah, the chapter ends with Gomez. Then, said Gomez, pointing upward, "We may as well go to the moon." And I assume he was pointing up to the moon with his thumb.
He pointed upwards with his thumb.
But yeah, then we sort of we are in the final chapter 35. It was the last like 8 pages. It was very brief. But he's sort of just doing his whole, like, I got to go see about this girl type of thing. And there's not much plot left, but there's a lot of stupid things left. believe it or not.
Yeah, this was one of those things like the Klein book where you read it, you kind of look at the page count and you go, wait a minute, this can't really be, I don't see, you're not going to land this plane. And he certainly does not.
No, he doesn't. To his credit, he doesn't cure cancer and all other diseases in the span of one sentence, but he certainly doesn't stick the landing. Before we get to the moon, we have a wildly out of place sort of comic relief scene that is pretty much a direct ripoff of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, I didn't know this. I didn't recognize the illusion.
They come in when the chapter starts thusly. When Jake came walking into the gallery of their moon-bound spacecraft, Gomez was arguing with the kitchen computer. And Gomez is saying, like, that's a terrible start to begin with. But how can you have gone wrong on oatmeal, he was asking. It's one of the basics of the human diet, has been for countless centuries. Well, let's give her another try, said the terminal's Vox box. How about the raisins? They taste okay? Gomez set the bowl on a gray counter and kept the spoon. See, but I'd like them some other color than blue this time. So it's a fairly prominent thing in that the English guy on board the spaceship in the Hitchhiker's Guide is always the machine is like able to produce something that's always like somewhat but almost entirely unlike tea. And I think it's always very friendly about how it goes about. I haven't read that in a long time, but I feel like the echoes of that ring very true in this because this oatmeal nonsense lasts for like the next 3 pages.
Oh, well, then it's definitely, we've both looked at pictures. If you haven't seen a picture of Goulart, go ahead and do an image search right now and then try to guess whether or not he would probably be a fan of Hitchhiker's Guide. Just go ahead and do it. Okay, you're back, and you agree with us. Yes,
100%. So yeah, that was sort of just a frustrating. Like, we don't need this now. We had 2.5 pages of Sonny Hokori. We don't need 2.5 pages of the oatmeal bit where the ship is like unable to produce oatmeal. But then I was also, this sounded familiar to me, and when I went back in one of the fanfics last time, I think they had read ahead. And so they had sort of incorporated this oatmeal bit into like, because there was a fanfic about them throwing the oatmeal onto Sonny Hokori or Bennett Sands. And so like I wasn't sure how I felt about that.
Oh, you mean about the person stealing?
Because it makes it a bit more convincing. And sure, if oatmeal had been a thing throughout the rest of the book, that would have been a good detail to use. But I don't approve of slightly changing the scenes in order to try to trick you. If you got that one wrong, I think I would go back and sort of put an asterisk by it.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the same thing. So whoever you are, shame. For shame.
So we get this wonderful update. Sands is still in a coma, so that's going to have to wait. So my note was just like, they talk about these two idiots for the entire book, and then they immediately die and go into a coma. And presumably the professor is in a coma too.
Yeah, I had this sentence. Well, I mashed together a few sentences here, and I just have still with 800 question marks after it. How about Professor Kitteridge? What's his version of recent events? According to our boss, Kitteridge is claiming he was kidnapped, he and his daughter. Says he had no idea that Sands was a partner of Hokori's, with Sands in Slumberland and Hokori among the angels. Like, this can't be happening. We met them. They're dead. They're dead and in comas. Stop it. Stop mentioning them.
It's a tick. It's a compulsion. You just can't do it.
Oh, man.
It's like the bus will explode if people don't mention Bennett, Sands, and Sonny Hikari 50 times per hour.
But then they get to the moon or thereabouts. They're pulling up to the moon.
Yeah.
And outside the milky see-through walls of the Great Dome. 2 other similar domes showed. What's missing in that sentence? Why is he talking about see-through walls of a great dome? You son of a bitch. They're neither plas nor lucite this deep into the book. How dare you? How dare you?
They went off brand and we're just too ashamed by it. Oh, man, I didn't pick up on that. That is idiotic. But yeah, at this point in time, I was sort of frustrated with the whole thing. So we can talk towards the end of the book, but I didn't have a lot of specifics to the end of this because I'll admit I still wasn't sure like 2 chapters away from this, if there was going to be like a reveal, it was all a dream, if there was all sorts of nonsense. But then I realized that they were just sort of edging towards him, going toward to meeting her, like seeing about a girl. And it was like, this is so dumb and so stupid, and has absolutely no payoff, that I sort of like was flipping pretty quickly.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I thought there was going to be something. I knew there couldn't be, but did you notice that he started to cough as he walks through that old version of? So it's like a simulated city, but it's run down. So he's trying to once again make it sort of, it's film noir. He's walking through a dark neighborhood. Cats are meowing, and maybe 2 guys are in a fight in a back alley or something, and and he's walking to this, but he starts coughing, and he coughed again, and I was like, wait a minute. So does this tie into the sickness of his wife, who was getting thinner? Remember how that didn't come down?
Oh yeah, didn't. Yeah, I mean, maybe she had whatever Bennett Sands had, it was gauntness and drooping eyelids.
So that was nothing. But this is nothing. So he walks through this old place, and she's just there, and he meets her. I mean, there's no way to describe this as that's it. He's just like, oh yeah, I know who you are. Yeah, I think I can trust you, and that's it. End of the book.
The one other thing that had been set up that didn't pay off was that he knew the password to her house that had been well established and talked about for some reason for a long period of time, and he doesn't have any opportunity to use it. He knocks on the door. The old robot butler is there, who's like wary about letting him in. He doesn't say, "Hey, eclectic," like, I'm good. Like, let me. It was bizarre.
Yeah. Well, once again, we get one more touchstone at least.
Okay.
After nearly half a minute, he heard shuffling footsteps from inside. In another half minute, the door opened a few inches. So at this point, like you say, you would be screaming, "Eclectic, eclectic!"
Yes, exactly.
For God's sake, beep, eclectic. A full, so over a minute of shuffling.
You start to question whether or not you've just like been mispronouncing it your whole life, because it is sort of a weird word. Like, you don't say it too often, but you read it more than that. So you're like, is it eclectic? Like, did you mispronounce electric? Like, did I just mishear that back then? Electric?
Now I've said it enough. It doesn't even seem like a word. Man. So that's it. She walks to the door. A person he's never met. He's only seen pictures, and let's face it, he's probably taken those pictures into the smallest room of his house.
She shows up, she reveals, she's wary at first, but she reveals that she and her dad had been essentially giving Jake the Sonny Hokori treatment, because they had been talking about him before they had ever met him. She says, "My father, when I still had faith in him, spoke highly of you. Your record as a cop wasn't all that admirable toward the end, but we concluded you'd been framed." So they were sitting down, like having a long discussion, like parsing out, like debating, like, well, he did this, but then again, he might have been framed. And they came to a conclusion about him, like during their like, maybe while they were building the nude android version of her or something.
That's the book I want to read. That's like the mirror story of this book.
Yeah, exactly.
we would just the drinking game in reverse, Jake Cardigan.
But then the way it ends is, she lowered her gun to the side, moving even closer to him. She said, "I have the feeling we've met somewhere before." Jake grinned at her. "Matter of fact, we have," he said. "Let me tell you about it."
Yep.
And so you imagine, him being like 45 seconds into this story and her being like, "Nah, I've heard it, not interesting. Not an interesting story. The robot is, you crapped your pants in the freezer and he's saying mess? Like, no, I don't need to. Why? Winger?
Oh, why are you telling me this?
I don't need to know about this character. He clearly doesn't play a major role in this story.
Look, I guess I could deposition at your when you're retried or something. That I don't have any direct evidence, but I suspect you were framed. I'll do what I can, but
I've clearly been through the biggest trauma of my life, and if he tells it in real time, he encounters the android version of her like halfway through, so she doesn't even understand why he has this attachment to her. As
he's, she's pouring him a cup of tea and looking at her watch, and he's like, Then I leaned over and gently and kissed the robot version of you, like, sir, I'm going to ask you to leave now.
Oh man. So yeah, it's sort of it leaves the door open for the rest of the series. Like I guess they're going to be, hanging out with each other, or maybe it starts with him being like, well, that didn't work out with Beth, obviously, but Gomez is still around.
Yeah.
I guess we are not going to know, but yeah, that was the journey of TekWar.
Yeah, holy cow. My first thought about it was there's an old joke like, you can count on me, I'll always let you down. That's what I felt about, like, this did not disappoint in that I knew it was going to be disappointing.
Right.
And it was 100% disappointing. So bad, the end of this.
But like we always say about the bad movies, like if you set out to try to do something bad, you will never succeed because you will not pick up on what makes those bad movies so uniquely bad, whether it's, the uniquely round numbers, whether it's, the aspects of the Tommy Wiseau thing, like I have cancer, no, I don't. Those are the type of things that made it not disappointing in its disappointingness, like the periods of time, the plas, the thinking aloud, the weird constructions in the middle of the sentences, all that stuff, the weird characters, like no one could have tried to replicate that if they're like, I'm going to do a fake, William Shatner novel. It would have just been so much more generic and less weird.
Yeah, if this were like one of the cult movies you described, the audience would be doing, full-voiced countdowns when someone went to the door. They would be, saying like, it's a kamikaze, in unison and stuff like
Every
that.
time Sonny Hokori is mentioned, who?
Yes. And so, yeah, it has all that in spades, but just like you said last time, how bad would it have to have been to not be published? I mean, did an editor read the ending of it and say, all right, I mean, I guess I'll put it out. It's sort of, people can imagine it because it is so unsatisfying. Even in the dumb things that it tries to accomplish, it's not even close.
I guess at some point you're like, well, another, 3 months, a month is not going to improve anything. Like clearly the ending is going to be something you have to hand wave over. And now they're in love when the second book starts because this woman is not going to be charmed by this idiot who showed up on the moon at her father's villa. So, yeah, I think it was just sort of like run it into the ditch and pick up in the next one.
Well, I do imagine, though, at the Tech Lord initial phone call, like, it sold well enough, Bill. And, I think we want to move forward with it. Now, obviously, we have a new a ghostwriter here for you, and he's sitting with me, and he's very accomplished. He wrote that, oh, no, I want Goulart. I'm like, oh,
right. No, we really feel like we could make this into something like that would be like good and make a lot of money. And like, no, like, let it be what it is. Like,
that must have been so intensely frustrating. And then they hang up from him and, he's talking to his numbers guy. Like, well, I mean, obviously you're going to sell way less than the first one, but yeah, well, it'll probably pencil out. Like, okay.
Right. Well, there it is. That's TekWar. We do have 2 more departments left to get to, and we've talked for a long time, so I think we should just dive right on into the dumb sentence of the week.
A sentence begins with a capital letter. A capital letter is a letter that's big. A capital letter is not a small letter. A capital letter is big, big, big. A sentence ends with a period. Or an exclamation.
Oh, so many this week.
There were.
Some of them got burned in our description of them, but I think I still have. Why don't you start there?
I've got one. Yeah, let's do some of the listeners. A lot of these listeners are supporters of our Patreon, patreon.com/372 pages, where you can get all the episodes free. Free what? No, not the exact opposite of free. You can get them early if you pay. And we've been doing some exclusive things on there. And one of them is going to be, we're going to watch the TV movie of TekWar and give them our thoughts on it over on the Patreon. Coming up soon. I'm not sure when we'll do that, but I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, that's got to be a real, like, timepiece.
Oh, it's going to be, because it's made for TV, one. So, yeah. And then, like, I tried to watch the Stand TV movie.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Where, like,
yes.
or maybe I just watched the trailer for it and I was like, I'm not going to watch this because it looks so bad. And that was like a 4-hour event of a good book. But it's this is going to be even worse. I had it on the Plex and it shows you the sort of IMDb credits on there. And it had, characters for Bennett saying Sonny Hokori. So I was like just rubbing my hands in anticipation. but yeah, so we'll review that on Patreon. We're going to give away I guess only my copy of the book that I took my notes in to a Patreon supporter. And Patreon helps us raise a bunch of money for good causes every year. We support every month. We've supported 826, the one that helps underserved kids with creative writing. So we hopefully avoid future Shatlarts. And we supported a great one called Coach Art last month that gives kids with I wouldn't say terminal conditions, but like kids who don't have an easy time of it, good experiences with coaching, be it sports or lessons in music, that sort of thing. So they pair them up with one-on-one coaching, and that's a really cool organization too. So thanks to everyone who supports us.
Yeah, thank you all Patreon people. This is really cool to keep doing it, knowing that at least some good will come of it.
So first sentence is from Tom. He submitted one towards the end. I think it might be Gomez, or maybe it's Jake. Yeah, especially since no one closely resembling her seems to have used any public means of transport out of Acapulco since the time Beth escaped from the Pleasure Dome. That includes skyliners, land buses, and rented sky cars. And so Tom's comment was, "You fool, Jake. You only checked those 3 possibilities. What if she escaped by sky cruiser, air cab, sky ambulance, air van, sky van, land car, sky bus, land cab, sky craft, land van, sky hearse, sky racer, or sky truck?"
I love it because you know what? I got to that and was going to do that same work, and I kind of just went, I'm a little tired. I pushed myself up on my elbows with a slight grunting sound in my candy striped nightshirt and went, I don't think I can do it.
Trejan submitted, however, even as we speak, even as you drink in my words of wisdom delivered in the melodious voice that has been known to charm birds out of the trees and both princesses and bimbos into the sack, where was I? So that was Gomez's, and he whimsically guesses that this sentence paragraph was Shatner's, not Goulart's, which sounds, sure, maybe that's, maybe Shatner got his hands on the Gomez character at the back of it, and that's why it changed so radically.
Is it possible that Shatner did it and didn't realize which character he was writing, and Goulart went, awesome. I'm going to leave it in because your name is on the book, you dick.
Right. I still that would explain the room nature of that theory. Justin submitted a black. Okay, so 2 people at the end of these submitted ones we covered. Justin submitted Black Sky Hearse and Gleaming Silvery Priest Bot. Dave submitted the Quartet of Bewigged Chrome Robots. Both of those are probably worth revisiting just for that sake. Dave's comment on the Bewigged Robots. Imagine the ecstasy Shatlart must have felt putting the period on that beauty, possibly equal to the agony I had in reading it. And Justin pointed out that the Skyhearse and Priestbot are essentially predicting Futurama gags, which is the second time that Futurama's been invoked in this. I guess that's I don't know. That's a compliment for Shatlart more than anything, I suppose.
Really.
And my dumb sentence of the week, it was another one from the hilarious bit at the end of the book. It was sort of the capper to the whole thing. Oatmeal's ready, announced the terminal in a pleased tone. And my only comment was, there are 5 pages left in the book at this point in time. How dare everybody?
Oh, that's nice. Do you have any more from readers?
No, that's it.
Okay, I have a dumb sentence, but there's one thing that I missed, and where is it? I'm going to find it. But it was when a pimp explained to him about like that he has. I can't find it.
Oh, sure. Like when he's saying like I only have real things in
here.
Yeah,
and he says explained the robot pimp or whatever. To say, yep, that pimp's a real Malcolm Gladwell there explaining difficult concepts. I only have robot as well as real horse.
Right.
Like, explained the.
Yeah, I got ladies, senor, young ones, even a few mature ones, explained the mechanical man.
Now, I know this is going to be a different... Why don't you sit down on the rest bench?
Okay.
And I'm going to put on a... Here's a little chart that I'm going to write on this plas glass
chart.
Up
Whoa,
here.
whoa. This is more than I was prepared to deal with.
Hang on. Let me
This is a rest bench. I'm trying to rest here.
Anyway, that's not my dumb sentence. That could have been. It's just this because it's chapter 34 and it's the first sentence. So on its own, it's not that dumb. But given that we've had nothing but cyborgs, robots, Andes, or whatever, the first sentence is, he was awake when the robot came to get him. Like, come on. Is that's supposed to be an impact sentence at this deep into this book?
That was another one, like I think after one of those paragraph breaks, like the mysterious ones.
Yeah. But this is supposed to, whoa, robot?
A robot?
Woke him up? What? Oh, what kind of magical world is this? Oh my gosh. Are there chest-high plas fences? How sturdy are they? I want to hear more of this enchanting world.
2 hours into Jurassic Park, being like, whoa, a dinosaur.
Yeah. Oh, well, there it is. Do we have any mail?
We got some emails. Yeah, let's do them.
We're going to the party. We're going to the game. We're going to the disco. We're going to cruise out, man. We're stealing people's mail. Stealing people's mail.
Take it away.
All right. Well, this one was really something special, and even though it's going to give me fits, I'm gonna go through with it. Luke sent this to me on Twitter. He somehow got all the text of every tech book and even some of Goulart's other books into some sort of database and started searching it. And he found out that, believe it or not, in Tech Kill, there's a character named Ogden. Out cold, which is the way a lot of the new recruits check in. Dropping to the cot edge, he started tugging on his neo leather boots. I'm Ogden Whitney.
Oh.
And then
you're 1 for 2, but keep going.
Damn it. And then he was doing this. These tweets came in fast and furious, all caps. There is another one in TechNet. The artist you heard she was fooling with isn't exactly an artist, but I'm near certain it has to be a fellow named Ogden Vargas, who builds robot puppets that he uses in making VidWall commercials. And so Luke said, I had to double check to ensure it isn't Vargas from this book. Nope, that's Rafe Vargas. Also, there appears to be a China Vargas too. And then I think he only had the tech database, but then he somehow got a Goulart database. He wrote in, Ron Goulart is obsessed with the name Ogden. In Harry Challenge, which is a book, I guess.
Challenge?
Harry, like the Prince Harry. Victorian supernatural. Harry Challenge. Victorian supernatural sleuth. There is an Ogden Whitney III. And in Believing in Santa by Ron Goulart, there is an Ogden Brookenshire. So that's insane.
Who is this either an homage or a poking in the ribs of? I don't know.
A guy he hates. It's a poking in the ribs of me, that's for sure. We get a email that you might appreciate. This is from Peter. Although Klein and Goulart really lean into this idea more than most. I mean, this is sort of like having all the old slang, I guess.
Yeah.
Sort of the stuff we were talking about with Gomez in this last thing. Having the future emulate or reference the past is a pretty common trope in a lot of futuristic sci-fi. It's probably easier for writers if they can borrow familiar things they know or whatever seems cool from the past and present rather than make everything whole cloth. Apparently, this is a fairly old technique within the realm of speculative fiction. G.K. Chesterton's 1904 published work, The Napoleon of Notting Hill, spends its short first chapter drolly establishing the conceit that people of the 1980s will readopt the habits, technology, and fashions of their turn-of-the-century counterparts simply out of discontent with futurism.
So what this person is saying is that Goulart is basically G.K. Chesterton. Okay.
So we were having an online conversation earlier this week where you casually said I had been reading the complete works and I got to this point, I realized the thing wasn't, and I was like, the complete works of what? And you said that it was G.K. Chesterton. So I just thought. That's you're the well-known shorthand whenever you say the complete works.
Well, I didn't want to. How pretentious if I send you a text that says I was reading the complete works of G.K. Chesterton. I was merely trying to make a point about where your bookmark is in your Kindle. I didn't want to start invoking that. It was like I pinged someone once on an instant message and said, and they replied, "Oh, sorry, I was a little distracted. I was translating the works of Pablo Neruda." And I was like, you son of a bitch. And it was not a joke, trust me.
Wow. All right. We got another one. Ben, One thing that has always bothered me about the idea of tech and anti-tech, and I think I can finally put my finger on it, with real-world drugs, you can still interact with people and you can still pose a threat to society. With tech, it's basically the same as plopping on the couch and strapping on a VR headset. Why is it so negatively regarded in this world? Do people sometimes lose touch with reality and begin to think the real world is the tech world? What's so bad about wanting to veg out in the comfort of your own home and dream of a better life? What's to stop anyone from unplugging someone's brain box as soon as they jack into the Matrix? Newsflash, the perfect anti-tech technology already exists, a slap on the back of the head. I guess that's a good point, but I guess
did they talk? I thought there was some talk, and again, it was not fleshed out, but some the negative reasons for tech. I thought there was some nod to it, but I probably invented it in my own head for the same reasons, going, well, there has to be some reason this is bad. But
I think they probably said there was like hollow-eyed tech junkies, just, shorthand stuff like that. Yeah. I assume you could, in every, story like this, you do start like neglecting your kids or starving as you're like jacking into this, fantasy world, and your kid's diaper needs changing, that sort of thing. But, it's he makes a good point.
It does seem to be at about the same level as, say, gambling or something, where it's, it's not illegal in most places, but there obviously, all of us recognize negative consequences to it.
Sure.
I'm sure there are wars over gambling, and have been in the same sense, but so I guess that's about the level that it's at.
If there are gambling wars, that'd be a one-up on TekWar then. This one is Eric. He says, after about halfway through, I lost track of the story. All I know is that Jake wakes up from the freezer, shits himself. We see some pretty memorable robots. We talk to a lot of people from place to place, get into an oddly elaborate bullfight, meet War Bride, and somehow the book ends with Hokori dying somehow. I forget how. Head blown off. All writing style aside, there is no real plot of any interesting significance. Jake talks to a bunch of people, has a few cheesy scuffles, and then it ends. No tech, no war, no TekWar. I felt it like it should have ended with, and then Poochie returned to his home planet.
Wow.
My book flap review blurb would just be, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty on point. I think he agrees with us in large measure.
It's a few, not too far removed from the pace is unrelenting.
Yes.
The top one. From the Star Trek's Captain Kirk, a futuristic thriller. No judgment whatsoever.
Yeah.
Last one, just because it is the last TekWar episode, but this one sort of sums things up pretty well. John writes, throughout the book, we had a good laugh at how Jake being frozen for 4 years was treated as if it was some sort of Rip Van Winkle situation. But if you look at some of the developments during this period, this was an amazing 4 years to have sat out. And so he gets a bullet point list. The concept of the kamikaze after a century of disuse becomes a popular weapon against everyone from tech lords to plump research assistants. It's not even treated as a foreign word, i.e. in italics, like the smatterings of Spanish thrown around. It's back and it's mainstream. 2, hologram housing, despite the influence of the plasriding and shingle industry. 3, the elephant population has apparently made a staggering comeback, as evidenced by the student faculty lounge at a state technical college having an entire bar made of the stuff. 4, the very concept of wars about tech, the idea that invested parties would resort to violence over control of an illegal substance. Who could have seen that coming? 5, anti-earthquake devices. In only 4 years, this went from so far-fetched it might as well be magic to Jake being mocked in the street by children for not knowing what it was. Earthquake prevention, human mastery over the earth itself. Of course, Jake takes this news like the news that the McRib is back. Anti-earthquake device, neat. Hey, I wonder if Beth Kittredge likes Night Ranger. He concludes, I mean, that's a pretty amazing 4 years. There had to have been a presidential election in there, too. How are you going to run against the guy who stopped earthquakes and saved the elephants? That was a
very nice.
Good summation to wind things down on.
I'm just to be clear, there was something ivory. Is that what we're talking about? Was it ivory?
I think he said you might have, maybe ivory or elephant leather. I'm not sure. I hadn't noted that one.
Oh,
so
okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, I didn't remember. I think there was ivory or something.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow, that's very good.
Yeah, TekWar.
Do you have any final thoughts on it? I think we've been pretty clear. We've said a lot about this.
We have.
I just want to say one thing about it that I think I brought up to you and just to email is that this sits somewhere between the Klein thing. Like this strikes me as a cynical exercise in a way that Klein's books were just dumb, right? And Tice were dumb, but he strived. What is the word? I don't know.
Yeah, he dived through the door.
Yes, he tried really hard, and that made it sort of entertaining. And this sits in some halfway between world where it's obviously a cynical Shatner cash grab, but then that they couldn't get a guy to just write. Couldn't they have just taken a halfway decent sci-fi novel and slapped Shatner's name on it? And then instead of having him do this weird cynical exercise where it's half him, who knows what idea it was of him, and then to have it be so crappy just strikes me as, I don't know. It certainly doesn't make me, not that I would have respected Shatner more or something, but if he had stolen a better book, I guess is what I'm saying. Why didn't he steal a better book?
That's a really good question. I think, like you said, the cynicism is clearly was doing it. It was a product meant to establish a franchise and make some money. I felt like in the first book, Klein definitely cared about what he was writing. That was the one thing that was abundantly clear, and to his detriment. I don't know if Armada seemed like it might have been rushed out a little fast.
True.
And Tice clearly, that was all he had going on as a 16-year-old. So he clearly liked what he was doing. I can only imagine that they got Goulart because he worked fast and cheap. That seems like why else would you hire someone who had these weird quirks about him? I think it's just got to be like, yeah, I'll get you 60,000 words next week, like not an issue.
Yeah, I guess it's just that the clear through line with the other books made them more enjoyable in a way. This is a little puzzling. Like who's doing what is obviously a mystery that's kind of fun to contemplate, and all the theories about Goulart jabbing Shatner in the ribs, of course, are fun to speculate about. But the end product, without, as with all bad movies, like we always say, it's fun to speculate about what was the story behind this. That's why people like watching them. And the story behind this is a little less satisfying to me. It didn't make it less fun to read. But I'm just saying, as I think back on it, it's like, dang, it's too bad this wasn't fully Shatner and was known that it was Shatner. Right. And then it would have been more fun.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, it's definitely, there are tiers of these type of things. And so I'm glad that we've established that these are three distinct things, because it's not just like bad books. It's like they play different roles.
Yeah. And it's fun to explore what each one of those is. If only there were another Jim Tice book out there.
Hey, you know what? I don't want to set expectations high, but I've got something that might be a little closer to that stretch of things. I don't know. We'll see.
Ooh, that is very enticing.
It's a little. It might be a little amuse bouche before the next full thing, but I think that may be what we have to tackle next.
Oh, I'm rubbing my silvery hands together and touching the rose on my bald pate.
Well, yeah. Thanks for joining us for TekWar, people. We will have something else for you soon.
Yeah, and there's and again, we're not fully done with this for Patreon people.
Oh,
There'll be something up pretty soon.
Yeah.
Thanks again. This has been a ton of fun. And Connor, carry on. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. I guess.